Hello dear viewers, welcome to a new episode. In his book, Brief Lives, John Aubrey says that one of Oxford's Earls Edward de Vere, who worked at the royal court, during his meeting with Queen Elizabeth I, the Queen was just passing by, so he bowed down to her. Your Majesty. Sorry, Your Majesty. That was a chair creaking. There's no chair, it's me. The guy let out a excuse me what is described by kids as toots, or in formal Arabic, past wind. I won't say how we describe it in our language, but it has more than 12 terms each as worse than the other. The guy, after this accident happened, kept his composure until it was over. Then he left the castle, packed his clothes, traveled and left the entire country. He traveled away for 7 years to forget this incident. Imagine it took him 7 years to forget a toot, boomba. What would he do to forget a Timmy then? When this lord came back, the Queen met him and said, "My lord, I have forgotten the fart." Why did you remind me? The fart is the cast-out biological son of bodily functions. It's not only seen as embarrassing for who did it, it could also be an insult for people around him. The Egyptian king Ha'iber, which is a long name that was shortened by Herodotus to Apries. Herodotus said that there was a revolt against him in some areas. So, he sent one of his generals Amasis to end the revolt. When Amasis went to the rebels to talk to them, they liked each other. They told him, "Ignore this Apries guy, and stay here with us, be our king." And so, he was proclaimed king by them. That's when the Egyptian king Apries, who had a long name, sent one of his counselors to the general Amasis to tell him how low he is. "Didn't we send you to end them?" Herodotus says that Amasis's reply was to left his and fart, and said, "Take this and give it to the king." The messenger came back to the king with this nasty message. How was it delivered? We don't know. That's one thing that thank God isn't mentioned in history. So, the king cut off his nose and ear. That's when Egyptians heard about this monstrosity. So, revolutions broke out against Apries, and Amasis ruled instead. Can you believe that the country fell apart simply over a toot? Someone might ask me what's insulting about a fart. It's a bodily function just like breathing and eating. Why was the guy so offended like that? Even sneezing, coughing, and belching took their place in society. Belching is burping, by the way. But why not farts? Why when someone farts, we don't say, "Bon appetit," or, "Bless you"? Why do you act like nothing happened? Came from nature, then went back. Why do we hide it like a sin, and a matter of ridicule? And it's been like that for ages. It's not just since ancient Egypt. It's said that probably the oldest joke in history that dates back to 1900 BC in Mesopotamia. It was a joke about farts. The joke says that there's something which hasn't occurred for a very long time. What is it? That a woman did not fart when she sat on her husband's lap. That was humor back then. They were right. People died laughing over that back in BC maybe. The only exception to this view of farts was in the Yanomami tribe located in north of Brazil and south of Venezuela, who considered farting as a way of greeting. "What's up, my guy? What's good, dude? Good morning, my man. How are you and the kids? Uncle Yusuf." Not only that, there are cultures that find it a compliment after you eat at their home. So if you are invited somewhere in Ramadan, you'll hear an entire symphony. That's thanks for dinner. The question here is, why is all that fuss over something biological? Its only mistake is announcing itself through booming melodies, and the finest of smells which is done by every human. Me, you, your favorite players, your favorite actors, even, my friend, your favorite actresses, beauty queens, and models. What, abo mead? Girls do that? Some sources say, my friend, they do it more than us. However, it's about the quality, not the quantity. The normal person does it 12 to 25 times a day. Let me tell you that with simple math, we discover that in any day, there's more than 80 billion fart covering the Earth's sky. Well, it's a miracle the ozone layer was only punctured. The atmosphere would have quit the job and left. 80 billion. You might ask, what's the source of these farts? I'll answer that it's from air bubbles inside our intestines. A small amount of these bubbles are due to us swallowing air while we're sleeping, or when we have soft drinks, or eat gum. And that mostly exits from the mouth through belching, which is burping. But the larger amount of the bubbles are coming from bacteria that live in our large intestine and colon. Well, abo mead, let's just take antibiotics for these bacteria, and get rid of these particles. We already have fart ickles outside. Sadly, my friend, that can't happen. You think it's easy? We both will regret that. There are treatments for farts that starve these bacteria. But it's better for us if we made them happy and healthy. These bacteria live with us in a symbiotic relationship. Some carbs and fibers that are in the fruits and vegetables you eat, your body doesn't have enzymes to digest. So, they go through the stomach and small intestines without these fibers getting absorbed. Until they reach these bacteria, which then breaks them down, eats, and ferments them. And it gives the nutrients to other bacteria to eat it. There's a full ecosystem living inside you, my friend. Many creatures grow and reproduce, and gives us the nutrients of food we can't digest. Vitamins like vitamin B and vitamin K, and it produces fatty acids that line the colon, and regulate the intestines, and also support the immune system. The wastes of these very important bacteria are gases. The bacteria is good to us, but it has one flaw, so we should bear it. What, ABO Mead? Should bear it. The most famous gases are carbon dioxide and hydrogen. When you feel these two, my friend, it's okay, let it all go. Because they have no smell. Sometimes, we also produce methane, and methane has no smell. Musical note, you got a furry methane in me. Musical note, let me tell you that 99% of gases have no smell. And it could pass without you noticing. Wait, where's the smell coming from then? Is it Photoshop? Or a trick done by the West on our youth? That smell comes from gases that have sulfur in their formula. Like hydrogen sulfide, which smells like rotten eggs. All of these gases represent less than 1% of the total amount of gases. And sulfur exists in foods that are rich with fiber, like broccoli and, of course, cabbage, or seeds like white beans and broad beans. That's why their smells are a little special. And that's not an assumption, or God forbid a field study. That's a real study that researchers did where they got 2 people, and may God help them, and made them smell the gases of 16 people after eating beans. And they confirmed these results. After the beans, the smell is way worse. I swear I feel like there was no study, and they just wanted to prank these 2, so they got people in coats acting like researchers, and gave them farts. 0.16 people. In the 18th century, when Benjamin Franklin was an ambassador for the US in France, he wrote a famous letter with the title, Fart Proudly. The Arabic translation to this is, let it go. Don't be ashamed of your gas. Franklin asks in that letter from a Royal Academy to find a solution for the smell. Our issue with farts is the smell. We want to proudly fart with no smells. He wants scientists to leave their work, or research to find a medicine that can be put with food like spices and sauces to make farts smell less annoying. Or, even better, make it smell like perfumes. Benjamin Franklin wrote and said that there are things that make the mouth smell, and other things that make it smell good. So, how is it possible to change the odor of water? But we can't change the smell of gases? And he asked a well-spoken question. What comfort can you give to a man who has whirlwinds in his bowels? If you think about it, you'll see that the smell is the issue. Dr. Christian Bale, the anthropologist, says that the reason why we hate farts is its gaseous state. You can't catch it. It represents 2 people clashing together. An invasion for his sense against his will. A violation of personal space. If you saw a guy peeing, or will sneeze, or is about to produce other wastes, it's easy to avoid hat person. How? Like that. Even if a hair fell in your soup, you'll call the waiter. But, the fart happens in a state of secrecy, then suddenly stuff is flowing, and is already in your personal space. Something that came from someone else entered your nose. You can't see it, or know who it's from. And worse if you do. That's why we don't mind the smell of our own gas. Even though, it's most likely the same, or even sometimes worse. But, it's less violating than others' gases. And also we're already used to our own smell. A bond is created between a person and his farts. Then he knows its intensity, vibration, when it comes out and when it doesn't. And when it'll cover up for him, and when it'll expose him. Anyway, let me tell you, it's like a fingerprint. Every human has a special mixture of smell, produced by the bacteria in you, and that mix doesn't smell like anyone else. So, through someone's farts, you can know who he is. Give me a sniff, and I'll tell you who you are. If you'll do a crime, the same way you wear gloves, you should take care of your dinner. If your body disgusts you, you can't take care of it. Or know the best food for it. But you aren't disgusted by it. Since you swallow your saliva all the time. It's not disgusting. But, if you spit it out and swallow it back, then it's very disgusting. Even though it was always there. And that's why we hate farts. Farts violate boundaries inside and outside of your body. And that's disgusting, scary, and repulsive. On the outside, you're cute, handsome, and a model. But, on the inside you're disgusting. It's not only human frats that affect humans and the environment. If we're going to define farts as gases the exit from the end opposite to the mouth, then most creature pass wind. Salamanders, cats, kangaroos, rhinoceroses, and horses. Even carnivores. Seals release gases that smell like fish. Even, guess what, my friend? Snakes. Snakes? There's a type of snakes called the Sonoran coral snakes. They have an opening called cloaca. That opening sucks air in, and lets it out with noise. To scare away predators. Manatees, for example, keep their gas to stay floating, and when they want to sink, they release the gas. Nick Caruso, the writer of Does It Fart, says that it's easy to know if a manatee is constipated. He's always flipped. You'll see that his tail is always floating. In most of these animals, gases are a secondary product of digestion. However, in a fish like the Bolson P-up fish, the fart could save its life. That fish feeds off of algae, and algae, just like plants, causes gas. So, it puffs up the fish's intestines, and causes it to float. Now, any predator passing by could snatch it. Therefore, they have to release gas as fast as possible. Imagine, my friend, the scene where the predator is chasing it, chasing, running after it, and the fish is trying to let the fart out, let it, then it sinks, and saves its life. For that fish to empty their insides and sink back down, they keep hitting each other, until one farts and sinks. Imagine that last fish that hit all of her friends, and helped them sink, but she's still up. Herrings that live in salty water, communicate together with these gases to stay in shallow waters even in the dark. And let me tell you, my friend, that this biological event was going to cause a diplomatic crisis in the last century's 80s. Never underestimate farts. In 1981, a Soviet submarine deviated a little towards a Swedish coast 10 kilometers away from a Swedish naval base. The Soviet Union said, "Guys, it's a navigation error. We didn't mean to sneak into your ground. And if you're upset, here's a pound." The Swedish officials weren't convinced, and they secretly measured radiation levels in the water at that coast. And from the results, they doubted that there's a 90% chance of uranium, which is used, my friend, in nuclear weapons. Then the submarine went back to international waters. However, the Swedes were still paranoid. They think that Russian submarines are planning on something next to them. They started to spy around, and hear noises underwater. And in 1982, Swedish boats, submarines, and also planes were issued to chase after the noise source. But unfortunately, they found nothing. And they spent over 10 years looking for the source of the trouble. What's making all the uranium? And what's making all that noise? Until the Cold War was over, but the Swedes are still worried. So, in 1996, they consulted with the physics and biology professor from the University of Southern Denmark, Dr. Magnus Wahlberg, to investigate these signs. And indeed, they took him to a secret room under a naval base in Stockholm. He said in an interview that he was the first civilian to go and hear these noises that have been around for 10 years. So, he went home, and got a fish tank, and put herrings in it. Then he squeezed on it, so it released air bubbles with certain noise. Then he showed them that noise, and said, "That's what you're hearing." Herrings have a swim bladder. That bladder is connected to an anal duct. When something scares them like predator fish, or a Swedish submarines looking for Russian spies, they do a collective fart. Leader of the herrings all together now. 3, 2, 1. Come on, higher, higher. Here, the Swedes found themselves facing two news. The good news is, Russia isn't threatening Sweden. The bad news is, they've spent 10 years spreading their naval forces to chase after fish farts. Can you believe it? Fish farts. The thing is, most animals and creatures release air. By the way, even insects. There's a type of insects called the beaded lacewing. It farts in front of termites to kill it and eat it. Wow. Abo mead. Poor termites. No, my friend. Termites fart too. Termites' gases are responsible for 20 million tons of methane in the atmosphere each year. 20 million tons. If you think that creature releases the most gas, let me introduce you to the cow. The cow, Abo mead? Mooia. The cow releases 100 to 200 kilograms of methane yearly. Now, count how many are in the world. Let me say, the termites we talked about that release 20 million tons of methane. Those little tricksters that seem all innocent, are responsible for 4% of methane production. and all cows represent 40%. That, of course, creates a big problem with the global warming. There's even a new path to use these gases to produce energy. Project. The useful fart. Honestly, this isn't a totally new idea. In the 10th century BC in Assyria, they used methane gas to heat up water. However, if we could invent things to help recycle these gases, we could generate energy and electricity. If they're a car made to run on gases, then the gases produced by one elephant a day can run the car for 30 kilometers. That's a good idea, especially that natural gas is harmful to the environment. We want replacements that are free of carbon like hydrogen. Can we do that with our gases? Good question, and let me do the math. Gases, like we said, are a mixture of oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, methane, and carbon dioxide. So, we'll only use 2 for power generation. The hydrogen and methane are both flammable. Yes, my friend, your fart is flammable, so be careful. And please don't try it. No one will like the smell. Leave dermatologists alone. They have enough. They'll write in your report things you don't want to know. The hydrogen could represent 0 to 50% of gases, and methane is from 0 to 10%. And to solve this, we'll assume that the average hydrogen percent in a fart is 25% and 5% methane. An assumption. The amount of energy produced from one fart, according to this data, from hydrogen is 2.8 watt in an hour per liter, and from methane is 10.5 watt in an hour per liter. Most people, on average, release 500 to 1,500 milliliters of gas every day. If we said that the average of a single fart is 90 milliliter of gas, then one average the fart has, that's the important number 0.11025 watt per hour of energy. So, if you want to run your stove with these gases, then you need 317 watt per hour each year. That's on average. It depends on the meal. So, in order for you to be self-sufficient in your energy using your farts, you'll need 35,000 farts of the big type. The type that disturbs the United States and the IEA. The big type, my friend. The small one won't work. Not the silent type. If you don't understand, let me give you an example. If you're going to use the TV for 4 hours a day in a year, you'll need more than 5,000 farts to continue watching. Imagine watching the World Cup finale, and you're already drained. Then they tie last minute, and go on extra time. What about my intestine? Can't do that. If you want to run your whole house on gas, AC, washing machine, fridge, and a microwave spinning freely, you'll need more than 2.5 million farts, if your house is small. The big type, and what you can collect. And if your house is big, you'll need 6.5 million farts. Imagine if that was the measuring unit for the IAEA. There's no watt, or joule, or calorie, or any of that anymore. We'll use farts. You got to shops, and buy with farts. It's an energy currency. These are numbers based on the average. Doesn't include bloating. According to Guinness World Records, the English Bernard Clemens recorded a fart that lasted for 2 minutes and 42 seconds. He could have cut to a break during that. These was, in the late 19th century, a French artist called Joseph Pujol, who they called the fart maniac. He had an amazing ability, that some people we know might have, to control the sound of the fart. To the point that he could mimic the sounds of cannons and hurricanes. You might think it ends here. No. He had a talent of putting out candles with his fart. Oh, the point that he could mimic the sounds of cannons and hurricanes. You might think it ends here. No. He had a talent of putting out candles with his fart. So, if you have a birthday, and you got your son a cake with some candles, tell your son. Make a wish, son. Because this man will destroy your cake, and your dreams too. Putting out candles. He did that with his guests and sponsors, which included Sigmund Freud, the famous psychologist, the guy who has supposedly one the founders of psychology and fartology. Also, one of the most famous chronic bloating patients is Adolf Hitler. His colleagues said that eating with him is incredibly disgusting. He sometimes left the table, and went to a private place, and people thought he was thinking about a national crisis, but he was taking a little break. Where are you, Anita Gutenberg? Anyway, Hitler consulted an imposter doctor called Theodor Morel. Hitler saw him as a genius. So, he gave him pills and drugs to make things easier. It's said that Hitler during the invasion of the USSR was taking almost 120 pills a week. Where else did all this energy come from? He's bloated and wants to distract you. Jim Dawson, the writer of Who Cut the Cheese, claimed that these pills played a part in his actions and psyche. and maybe made him take decisions that got him defeated quickly in the World War II. In reality, these bloating could have been the only innocent thing in his life. As he was vegan, sometimes when you dissect certain things, you'll find them normal. It's just one function of the body. Why are we making a fuss about it? A modern study found that couples on average wait around 6 months before farting in front of each other. Even though, they only wait 3 months to admit their love, and 5 months before they cry in front of each other. The TV host and writer Pooja Bedi, in her article in the Times of India, says listen to the wisdom that farts are the signs of a real relationship. If you love her, don't hide anything. And she shouldn't also. She also says that beautiful beginnings and falling in love depends on the external look. However, farts represents trust and shared comfort. That's why I want you to relax. Preferably, in an open area, or in the bathroom. Please not the elevator. It's a little annoying. If you think keeping it in will make it disappear, that's wrong. That's something only one animal could do, which are sloths. Who, from the name, is too lazy to do. Even though he eats so many plants, he never farts. Sorry. Abo mead. Where the gas in his intestines? My friend, you don't want to know. Not the time for curiosity. Please, tell me, Abo mead, I won't let go. I need to know right now, where do the gases from his stomach go? My friend, the gases that get trapped in his intestines go back to the blood flow, and exits from the lungs. You can imagine what his mouth smells like. Told you it wasn't fun, you insisted. However, in humans, thank God the fart has only one way to go. Imagine smoking a hookah, but no one can see a hookah. Gas accumulation in humans causes bloating and stomach pain, and it could disturb your balance. And sometimes you lose control over it. So, it becomes a painful event. After it was quite an unnoticeable, and thank God, it's a huge blessing. Some patients wish they could for once pass wind in a healthy way. Hopefully they get better. At the end, I don't know where to put myself. I really hope you watch the old episodes, the new ones, look at the sources, and subscribe if you're on YouTube. And don't bend too much to look at the sources, it's okay. I'm doing this for you. But if it's hydrogen, okay. This episode calls everyone to let it go, it's time. It's time for the IAEA to get busy with projects that are less dangerous, and more freeing than the ones they are working on. And here, I'm calling out for everyone to let it go all at once, one day, 1 year. That's it. I hope you had fun, and felt happy, and felt free. Accept yourself. Accept what's in you. Accept your smells. But only make them for you. Try to keep it away from others. Respect their boundaries and personal space. That's it. If this episode reaches 1 million likes, I promise that I will make another episode after that. And if it didn't, I still will.